I was riding my bike down Randolph Avenue. It's a big hill. By the time I got close to the light, it turned from green to yellow, so I proceeded to ride my bike down the hill with caution. When I went through the light, it was still yellow, changing to red. I then tried to make a left turn and a gray car was coming towards me. As I turned, we collided and my whole right side of the body hit the car and then went to the ground and I was knocked out. After waking up, everything was blurry for a second. I stood up trying to shake it away by shaking my head repeatedly. I was a little dizzy, but the man that hit me was in the car and I heard him say, "Call 911 for an ambulance." I told him no multiple times that I was okay. So he ignored me and proceeded to call. Then a bystander that had saw what happened picked up my bike and put my chain back on that had popped off after colliding. He then handed me my bike and I walked to the other side of the street with it and I proceeded to get back on the bike, but I fell off again. And after another man who was first to immediately run over to me when he saw what had happened, asked me to stay and not leave so they can make sure I'm okay. I kept telling him I'm okay, I'm fine, over and over. I just want to go home. About 3 minutes later, a fire and rescue SUV pulls up. He jumps out and walks up to me and starts asking me a bunch of questions. Asking if I'm okay, I repeatedly told him I'm okay, there's nothing wrong with me. And about 30 seconds later, a fire truck pulls up along with 2 officers. One car later pulled up. It was an unmarked cop car. After saying I'm okay about 30 times to the fire truck people, the 2 officers walk over to me and proceed to ask me the same questions as everyone else was asking me. Are you okay? Where's your parents? Where do you live? What's your mom's phone number? I did not feel comfortable telling them my information, so I told them I was fine. As I continued to ride my bike in circles, the cop stops me and starts asking more questions, and I didn't want to answer them, so I told them I was going to continue to ride my bike in circles because I was told not to leave. And the officer then grabs me by my backpack, pulling me up off of the bike, while another holds my handlebars. I start pulling away because I did not want to be touched. I was still dizzy and oddly angry. I was confused what was going on. So one cop grabs my hand and tells me I'm being detained. So I then tell my friend to take my phone, and he starts recording, and that's when I kept telling them to get off of me because I did not know why I was being detained. So the 2 officers tried to slam me on the ground by throwing their legs in front of mine and trying to trip me over a curb. So I stood my ground and did not let them because I was afraid of what was going to happen next if I was to be slammed on the ground. So they get me over the curb and try to put me up against the wall. And I put my foot up to stop that, and that's when a man walks over and is trying to talk to me, and the large cop pulls out a taser and points it at his chest. So I get scared and start pulling away more while one cop is leaning on me and the other is holding my arm. He puts the taser away and tries to get a hold of my wrist and kept saying I'm being detained, and I asked for what over and over, and I got no response. So the officer grabs my hand and I say, "I'll tell you all my information, just get off of me." And they said, "Well, just turn around and put your hands behind your back." And I ask for what, and he responds with, "You're being detained." The large cop puts one handcuff on my wrist as tight as possible and holds the other, and as he pulls with all his strength, I scream, "Get off of me," and he tries to push my shoulder forward, and my arm was pulled backwards, which hurt, so I started to pull away and scream. I fall down, and he pulls my arm back up by the handcuff and slings me up against someone's concrete windowsill. I then hit my head hard again and start crying, and they continue to try to get the handcuff on my other wrist. And the large cop continues to pull me by the one handcuff that was on my wrist. It was on my right wrist. The other cop takes my other arm roughly and pulls it back as far as possible. I then scream and jump up and down, saying that my arms hurt. They got the handcuffs on me, and I try to sit on the ground, and they tell me to stand up while I was having a panic attack. I started having a panic attack, not really hearing anything that's being asked, but I remember I was screaming and trying to say, "Get off of me." I remember trying to get up, and they were pushing down on my shoulders, which made me panic more. and they stand me up and start walking me to the car. And I collapsed and blacked out again, and I was picked up, and I was kicking my feet as one cop holds my arms and the other holds my legs and carry me to the car and throw me in there. I am forced into the car as they start yelling at me to calm down, and I say I can't multiple times because I'm having a panic attack. And I start screaming for an officer named Zach. They then ask me if his name was Zach McCoy, and I say yes. I was like, call him, he is a black officer. Zach is the only officer in Hagerstown that I know, so I asked them to call. He said that he is not calling Zach, and the third officer then climbs in the car and tries to force my legs in. As I put them in the car, the cop maces me one time with the door open, then shuts the door partially and sprays me 2 more times with it going in my mouth, and then completely shut the door and gets in the front seat and sprays again. I then scream that I can't breathe because I have mace in my mouth. And they drive off really fast. I'm not strapped in. The cop stops at a stoplight and pulls up next to a car as I'm crying and pulls the window up, which I was using to clear my throat because I had mace in it. So I start choking more, and we get to the station and they try to snatch me out the car roughly. And I'm in handcuffs, so it was not easy for me. They get me out and they slam me up against another parked car and take me to the station saying, put her in a cell. So they start to drag me down the steps as I asked multiple times to slow down because I could not walk. They ignored me and told me to walk right. When we get to the basement, they sit me down on a bench and begin to search through my stuff as a female officer searches me. And after that, they say they sat me back down as I continue to cry that my face and my shoulders are burning. And they tell me that if I can act right, they will take the handcuffs off and let me go to the bathroom, and I beg them to. I then go to the bathroom and try to clean my face, but the water's barely coming out of the faucet. And I try to clean my face as best as possible, and another cop tells me not to wipe my face, but I did anyway. Before he said that, I wiped my face anyway and start to scream more. As I leave out the bathroom and sit back on the bench, another cop that was there at the scene says, do you think it would hurt more if I was to punch you in your face and get a black eye or get maced? I say, oh really, you would really punch me in my face? And he shakes his head and says yes. They then tell me that I can't see my mom until I answer all of their questions. They were asking me a bunch of questions asking me where I lived and my parents' phone number and everything. I did not feel comfortable answering their questions. Do I have to read more?
Is that the end?
I'm done.
Good.